Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? And it is a fine day, I have to say. Let me very quickly tell you what happened in my house last night. I'm sure that we're not the first people for this to happen to. But bearing in mind, we have two very large, although quite old, very large boxer dogs. So we sat there last night, me on my laptop, Fred on his laptop, my wife watching the telly. And in strolls a fox. Dog's fast asleep, fox strolled in. Yeah. So that happened. I'll bore you with that some other time. Now, today is it's a big day, actually. We've got a couple of films, both that have got Fred's stamp on them. The first is going to be featuring Laurini and the new SETTANTA high-reach excavator, which looks like that. If you're not aware, it does look like that. The second one is actually a Komatsu film that Fred did for the fine folks at Komatsu. So, just very quickly on the Laurini film, and it is going to be our first film today, so you won't have long to wait to see that. I took my drone, my little drone, to Italy to basically follow the action. Had some issues. The control was a bit sketchy. The gimbal went a bit weird a few times, and at one point while I was at Laurini, I took the drone up and then past the machine and towards the Laurini sign on the factory, and it basically, I wouldn't say it fell out the sky, but it did descend very quickly, and I had nothing to do with it. It was just like, no, I don't want to do this. I just came down. I had no means of checking it. There's not an actual excuse me. There's no SD card in the little drone that I use. You just basically plug it into your computer. So I had no idea what I'd captured, if anything, when I came home. Handed it to Fred. The result of that will be the film you'll be seeing today. Gary says, was that the fox that used to sit on your shed roof? I don't want to sound foxist, but they all look the same to me. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do very much like me a fox, and if we have one in the garden or if I see one up the road, I do regularly talk to them. I think foxes are a fine thing, and I'm glad that they're there. I realise those in the country are possibly less enamoured with our foxy friends, but yeah, seeing one in the back garden last night was nice. Seeing it in the front room, yep. Let's put it like this. My wife is insisting that the back door is shut, regardless of how warm it gets in the house. Jim Turner says, morning, people. Should that be bonjour, Mark? Yes, bonjour. I am wearing my stripy top. Although, you know, it could equally be a Venetian gondolier. No, wrong hat for a gondolier. Speaking of hats, by the way, you like this? It's the new Epiroc hat. Picked that up in Italy as well. Anyway, don't want to keep you waiting too long. Chris Fordish just said, good morning, everyone. Wonder what's going tits up today. Oh, something will. I just hope it's not the Laurini or the Komatsu film. After that, I'll be relaxed. Everybody, stand by your beds because it is that time. I'm going to roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. It is Wednesday, the 25th of June. Good morning. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming. In today's show, I mean, I've already shouted about it quite a bit, but I'm going to shout about it a bit more. We have the world premiere of our film of the new SETTANTA high reach from maverick manufacturer Laurini. We've also got a brand new film featuring my personal pick as the best machine at Bauma 2025, the Komatsu PC220LCi-12. We're going to take a spin in the latest ADT from Powerplus, and LiuGong goes even more electric than they went last time I saw them. Plus, in my morning monologue today, when ambition outpaces reality. All of that will make sense when we get there. No mystery machine again today. I don't know what I'm going to do. We are now, what are we? We are 44 shows away from our 1000th episode. So I need to come up with some new way of keeping you guys engaged. It won't be the mystery machine, I don't think, because that's a bit too easy to game, as it were. So I'm going to come up with something else. So yeah, 44 shows, and then we are to celebrate the 1000th, rebranding and all. But yes, while I'm mulling that over, I'm going to remind you very quickly of our question of the day, which looks like this. Yeah, our question of the day today comes once again from our resident quizmaster, Mr. Gary Muirhead, and his question is this: what is your most embarrassing moment? Now, I have loads from my private life, which is precisely why it's called my private life. I'm not going to be sharing those, but there is one professionally, there is one that stands out head and shoulders above the rest. Many moons ago, back when I was probably on Contract Journal or Plant Managers Journal, so back late 80s, myself and the Construction Press Corps were invited to FDI Sambron over in France. I think we went to a chateau, if memory serves me correctly. We got to take one of their telehandlers for a spin through a rough terrain course, all like this kind of thing. Now, in my defense, before I get to the punchline, I had never operated a telehandler before. Also, in my defense, the guy that was guiding me was French, and I don't speak French. So, rough terrain course, and it's uphill and it's down dale, but then we got to a bit where you're basically operating a bit like this. So I had a guy stood in front of me. If anyone's ever driven a telehandler, you'll know it's virtually impossible to see your wheels and where your wheels are, particularly the ones that are on the boom side, okay? So I'm going through this course, I like this, and there's a guy in front of me going like this. So I'm turning the wheel in accordance with his instructions. And at one point, he went to me. So I did exactly that. And he went, at which point I felt the machine kind of, and over she went. Yeah, laid it on its side very, very gently. There was no damage done, no harm done to me either. But I then had to crawl out of the side door, which was now the roof, and make my way out. Now, obviously, all the other press people were there, all with cameras, all photographing my embarrassment. Now, this is back in the day of films, photographs, actual pieces of, this is not a photograph, but actual pieces of paper for weeks. If not months afterwards, I'd get a random letter through the post at my office, and there was yet another photograph of me looking like a tit, climbing out the roof, the side door of a telehandler in France. There's my embarrassing moment, but what about you? Do you have any that you would care to share? That's what we'd like to know. Chris Ford is recommending a mystery machine by description. It's yellow and has a bucket. Where will I begin? Let's have a look. Dan says, well, for the 1000th show, why don't we do a meet-up on a Saturday at a central location? We could do that. I was talking to Gary about this online the other night, actually. We do need to come up with some bits and pieces. One of the things that I would like to do is to get lots of people basically highlighting the fact that it's 1000th show. Some of our previous guests, some of you guys as well. I'll come to that all in the fullness of time. A couple of things I do need to tell you, and I promise you, I'm not deliberately hanging this out. I'm going to get to the Laurini machine in just a moment. But next week, Tuesday and Wednesday next week, so the 1st and the 2nd of July, I won't be here. There will be no show. 1st and 2nd, no show. I'm going to be in Germany looking at an all-electric demolition site, which is ironic when you get to today's morning monologue, because, well, you'll see. And also at the very end of July, and I can't remember what the dates are. I can't remember if it's the 27th or the 28th. I'm going away for 2 weeks, basically. I'm jumping on a Mediterranean cruise and buggering off. So please, 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 please don't expect me to be broadcasting from on board a ship. I'll tell you more about that when we get there, but it is that time. It is that time. I'm going to roll a very quick video, and then I'm going to get into the Laurini meter things. Now, I know there are people out there that say everything happens for a reason. I don't buy that. That's life is random as far as I'm concerned, and that's just what happens. However, let me tell you a very, very quick story about Marco Laurini, who, if you follow him on LinkedIn, I'm sure he comes across as a really nice guy. You need to meet him because he's even nicer in person. But he was telling a story of, and I think this was like the late 1970s. He was working for his father's company, which is Laurini, as we understand it today. And he was involved in a lathe accident. He was working a lathe, got hurt, and he's got a huge scar right up his forearm. Obviously did him some serious damage. And he was out of action for the best part of 3 months. So his brother basically put him on a computer and he taught himself design, basically. Fast forward to now, and that accident, which I'm sure was very, very painful and potentially life-changing, that accident led to ultimately the creation of the SETTANTA high-ridge excavator, which I'm about to show you. So part of the EDA study tour to Italy, one of the first stops that we made was to Laurini. I've got a film that I'm working on in the background. It may be for tomorrow, maybe the day after, which will take you around the factory. But this is the main reason that we went. And if you like the video, it's not me. It's Marco Laurini and my son, Fred. Here we go. What can I say? That is the SETTANTA, and Dan Cullen sums it up in a moment. There you are. That is a beauty. It really is a very, very, very smart machine. I'm going to tell you a bit more about it in just a moment. Jim Turner has said this. Definitely a fellow I'd like to talk machine design ideas with. He would lap that up. His English is okay. It's not marvelous. I mean, way better than my Italian, but he is such an enthusiast. You get him on the subject of equipment and design and stuff like that, he will talk your ear off. He really will. Ken Hatcher says the ship will have Wi-Fi. Do the show live from the cruise. No, I won't be doing that. So, very quickly, here is the brochure of the SETTANTA. Very, very quickly, I can tell you, it weighs in at 35 tons. I'm sure I've got a detail here. Yeah, at 24.5 meters, it can carry a tool of 3 tons. One of the key things is the hydraulic widening undercarriage. Very, very tight transport restrictions in Italy, and obviously being Italian, he has designed it with that very much in mind. So yeah, it goes very, very narrow, but widens out. I'm sure you saw it from the video itself. You see the location of the boom foot there, way, way, way back, almost sort of cranish almost cranish. Just fascinated. Somebody asked me what I thought of it, and from an aesthetic point of view, it is a beautiful, beautiful machine. What do I think of it? I'll tell you when I see one in action, which I'm hoping to do at some point in the not too distant future. But absolutely, absolutely. I mean, what does it take for somebody to just take a big step back and say, do you know what? I want to do it myself. Now, this is somebody that's done lots of high-reach modifications over the years and done them very, very well. Obviously, he was very intrinsically involved in the creation of the Jumbo machine, which is an awesome piece of kit. But to take a step back, and one of the reasons that he gave, or one of the reasons that one of his colleagues gave, Christopher, if you're watching, good morning to you, was this feeling. And I have to say, it's something that I've been talking about for quite some time. One of my concerns with all of this is a high-reach machine is ultimately going to be a compromise. You're taking a machine that digs and turning it up that way, whereas this has been designed basically to be precisely what it is. Tristan Mays just says the Italians make a crane that looks very similar. I didn't know that, but thank you very much indeed. Garvin, mostly diggers. Good morning, Garvin. What engine did they go with? I can tell you it's a Scania. It's a Scania DC09, 350 horsepower, or that's 257 of your finest kilowatts. That's what it is. Gary Muirhead says, is Marco Laurini the coolest guy on the planet? He might well be. You know that thing they say about you should never meet your heroes? Well, I arrived at Laurini, and I've got to be honest, I was looking forward to the whole Italian trip, but that was going to be one of the highlights. And I did actually think going in there, what if he's not as cool as he comes across? Way cooler than that. Way cooler than that. He's just a really, really nice guy. Loves his staff, enthusiastic. Listen, if I had an opportunity to pop over to Laurini this afternoon, I'd take it with both hands. I really would. Jim Turner saying, is that your sweet way of saying he struggled to understand my dialect? I think the pair of you would probably need an interpreter in between. That's what I would say. Alex says, the undercarriage is based off the PMI developed. The rest of the machine, a modified Doosan. There is some Doosan under the bonnet, unquestionably. But when you see it out close, I mean, you tell me a Doosan machine that looks even remotely like that. It is, as I say, I will ultimately reserve judgment until I see it in action. But the one thing I would say is I just admire the passion and the determination to say, you know what, I'm going to go away and start afresh. I'm going to start from the ground up. I think that is deeply admirable. And bearing in mind, he was showing that machine off to representatives from the likes of Volvo and Caterpillar. They had a very good look around. What they made of it, they didn't share. But the very fact that he's done that, and we are talking about some pretty big rivals out there, not just the manufacturers themselves, obviously CAT, Komatsu, Volvo, Liebherr, all these companies that make high-reach machines, but also taking on the likes of Craic. And listen, Marco Laurini, I tip my Epiroc hat to you. Max Tiago has just said something probably in German, not entirely sure what it is. But good morning. Yes, should we crack on? Because I'll tell you about it in just a second. Let me do this first.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
What's that? It's just popped up. How did he get the name of it? I bet there will be copycats out there soon. Again, I'm not entirely sure where the name SETTANTA comes from. I will look it up, see if I can find that. It would take a bold company to do a copycat. I mean, obviously, you've got issues with copyright and what have you. But for a standalone manufacturer, not an established equipment manufacturer as such, that they do make equipment. They make lots of equipment, as you saw in the background there. But to decide, I'm going to start afresh with a brand new high reach, it'll take a bold company to do that. Now, I promised you another Fred film. Obviously, that I shot that. Fred made it look reasonable. The next one is entirely Fred's handiwork. He shot it, edited it, and everything else. It's actually a Komatsu film, and they've been sat on it for a little while, but they finally released it. And one of the reasons I'm excited about this is because when I came back, hold that thought. I do want to say this. Stephen Edwards says it's because it's the 70th anniversary of the company. Is that what SETTANTA means? It is their 70th birthday because it actually says, I don't know if you can see it there. It actually says 70 years of history on the screen there. Yes, that may well be. Well, I'm not entirely sure what SETTANTA is. That 70? I don't know. Anyway, yes, going back to Bauma. I kind of there you are. Michelangelo from Laurini. Good morning, my friend. Good job. SETTANTA means 70 in Italian. So Stephen Edwards, Michelangelo, thank you very much indeed. 70 in Italian. Just goes to show how ridiculously poor my Italian is. But thank you very much indeed. And please, Michelangelo, do me a favor, would you? Please pass on my my personal thanks to Marco and to the rest of the Laurini team for the warm welcome you gave us. Absolutely fantastic to spend time with you guys. Yes, so Komatsu, which is where I was going. Komatsu at Bauma. I sat down, you might recall, I sat down and tried to figure out what I believe to be the best machine at the show. It's hard to decide. I mean, how do you compare an excavator with a wheel loader, with a dozer, with a dump truck, and so on? Obviously, there were things like the Landcross one, the autonomous prototype from Liebherr, which are future-looking and fantastic and everything else. But when I sat down to think about what I believe to be the best, probably most important machine at Bauma, I went for the Komatsu PC220LCi-12 because I do believe that it will have the biggest cultural impact. I mean, bearing in mind the number that they're likely to sell and everything else, I just think that the PC220LCi-12 was the biggest of the machines. This is why. I'm going to show it to you right this moment.
Hi, I'm Robert McIntyre. I'm the product manager for Intelligent Machine Control Excavators at Komatsu. And we're here at Bauma 2025 to introduce the PC220LCi-12. With Intelligent Machine Control 3.0, we have several new, completely unique features that no other manufacturer or supplier can offer. 3D boundary control, tilt rotator integration and control, advanced payload, auto swing, swing to line, and travel along line. One of the new cameras on the 360-degree com vision. Com vision gives the operator a bird's eye view of all around the machine while he's sat in the cab. He can also specify what cameras are prioritised on the screen so he can make sure the job site is safe and there is no personnel close to the machine in a high-risk area. This machine is 18% more productive than the Dash 11 machine it replaces, but at the same time it's also 18% lower in average fuel consumption. This also enables the customer to lower their carbon footprint, and the CO2 per tonnes of material produced is 17% lower now. We've done this through a brand new high torque next generation Komatsu engine, allied to a completely redesigned ultra high efficiency hydraulic system. This is a new carb on the PC220LCi-12. Completely new carb, 16% more carb volume, 30% more legroom, and much more comfortable for the operator. We have electronic multifunction levers as standard. All of these buttons can be assigned with up to 49 functions, rising and moving pods, so the operator can get an exact comfortable driving position. And we have a brand new touch screen monitor that the operator can configure the machine exactly what they need for the application. We are helping the customer digitalise their job site. We have several solutions from Smart Construction that connect and integrate with the machine. First of all, we offer Smart Construction Remote as standard, so the customer can connect remotely with the machine, can send design files, and can connect to the monitor and support the operator. Also, we have Smart Construction Fleet Lite, which connects to the advanced payload system so the customer can download productivity data and make sure they're meeting the production targets. So you can probably see for yourself the amount of interest this machine has generated at Bauma. We've had huge amounts of people onto the stand wanting to know more about it.
As I say, my personal favourite of the machine, just in terms of, I can't think of a better word, but cultural impact. You bear in mind the number of sort of 20-ton class excavators the fine folks at Komatsu were likely to sell. And that one's been a long time coming. I'm going to do this one very quickly. Gary says, funny hearing a Scottish voice. Shouldn't be funny to you. You should hear them all the time. Now, Gary also says, going back to Laurini, this is only one part of an amazing company, and Laurini makes some fantastic pipe laying equipment too, an amazing portfolio. It is an amazing portfolio. Do you ever get kind of nervous? Michelangelo has just come back and says, Marco is here with me watching the show. Greetings to all. Ciao, Marco. What an honour. What an honour to have the main man himself actually watching the show. Marco, listen, congratulations on the SETTANTA. Thank you for your hospitality. And I will say this: I'm not going to agree with Dan on this, but I'll say it anyway. Greetings, Mr. Laurini. When are you coming to the UK? Marco, don't come to the UK. I will go to Italy. That would be better for everyone. The food where you are is way better than it is here, so I'll come to you. Maybe come to the UK for the 1000th edition, which is about a month and a half away, so we can all meet you and talk machines. Listen, if I could genuinely, gentlemen, if I could wave a magic wand, put you all on a coach and take you to Laurini land to spend the day with Marco and the team there, I would do that because I know he would give you a very warm welcome, and I know you lot would absolutely. Well, it would be like taking children to Disneyland. That's what it's like. And just to very quickly clarify, and I did say this to Marco while I was there, but I'm going to say it again. I did liken Marco to Willy Wonka a while back, and I meant that in a very complimentary way. I do think, he has a beautifully skewed version of the world. The world is here. Marco's taken a step over here. But I saw him a day or two after we went to Milan. And we went around the Duomo and everything like that. Lots and lots of talk about Leonardo da Vinci, not DiCaprio, Leonardo da Vinci, who also had a future-facing, very different idea of how the world works. Marco Laurini is the Willy Wonka of the industry, but he's also the Leonardo da Vinci. That's my feelings anyway. And Dan says it would be like heaven for many. Listen. I would tell you more about this because I am going to put a film out at some point in the not too distant future, which charts the journey across Italy. Well, obviously we're highlighting particular bits, so CGT and Despe, and I'll be doing Laurini again probably tomorrow, but VTN and Mantovani Beni and Trevi Beni, we'll do all of that. But there was lots and lots of bits in between as well, which I will be highlighting. But one of the stops that we made was at the Lamborghini factory. Now, let me state for the record, I'm not a petrol head. I'm not interested in cars at all. But we did the entire guided tour, headphones on and very knowledgeable young lady taking us around and showed us absolutely soulless. The cars obviously are beautiful and powerful and sexy and cool. But we spent probably an hour or so walking around the Lamborghini factory. We spent exactly the same amount of time walking around the Laurini factory. Give me the Laurini factory any day of the week, or the Trevi Beni, or the VTN, or the Mantovani Beni. There's a passion that Lamborghini don't have. It's all a bit cold and impersonal, whereas, as I say, the trips to Laurini and VTN and what have you, much, much better. Anyway, should we crack on? I think we probably should, because we've got more to show you after that.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
If I said to you ADTs, what names spring to mind? Personally, Volvo, Cat, Bell, Komatsu. But Powerplus? Would that be a name on the tip of your tongue? If not, maybe it should be. Have a look.
Introducing the all-new 2025 Powerplus PAD450Z articulated dump truck. A new standard in heavy-duty performance, reliability, and efficiency for mining operations. At the heart of the Powerplus PAD450Z is a turbocharged Cummins engine, delivering a massive 540 horsepower. Designed to tackle the most demanding jobs, this engine provides the power needed for maximum productivity in extreme conditions. For quick and easy maintenance, the engine is housed under a fully opening hydraulic cover, offering effortless access to the heart of the machine. Power meets precision with the Powerplus PAD450Z's heavy-duty Allison automatic transmission, proudly made in the USA. This robust gearbox ensures smooth, reliable power transfer, whether you're on steep gradients or navigating rough terrain. Built for resilience, this articulated dump truck is equipped with Meritor wet brake axles. With superior traction and control, the Powerplus PAD450Z operates effortlessly even in the harshest mining environments. The Powerplus PAD450Z boasts superior hydro-pneumatic front suspension and maintenance-free bogie rear suspension, ensuring smooth and stable handling even over uneven and challenging terrain. With a reinforced dump body that can carry up to 25 cubic meters of material, the Powerplus PAD450Z is built for big jobs. Its dual double-acting hydraulic cylinders provide powerful lifting capability, ensuring efficient unloading every time. Even the toughest materials are no match for the exhaust-heated dump body, making offloading sticky materials a hassle-free process, saving you valuable time and effort. Precision is key. The Powerplus PAD450Z's 4.5-meter articulated turning radius allows for exceptional maneuverability even in tight spaces, giving you the flexibility you need to work efficiently in confined areas. Safety is paramount in every operation. The Powerplus PAD450Z comes equipped with a 360-degree camera system and all-around working lights, ensuring maximum visibility and safety for operators and crew alike. The Powerplus PAD450Z is designed for efficiency. With a centralized lubrication system, every moving part stays lubricated, reducing wear and tear while increasing uptime and reliability. Equipped with the industry-leading Danfoss hydraulic system and Trelleborg dampeners, the Powerplus PAD450Z offers exceptional shock absorption, reducing strain on the chassis and providing a smoother ride on even the toughest surfaces. Engineered for the most demanding mining applications, the Powerplus PAD450Z delivers unrivaled power, performance, and precision, ensuring you get the job done faster, safer, and more efficiently. Powerplus, built for the toughest jobs, built for you, ready for pre-order now.
My feeling on that, I was just sat here thinking it. Obviously, I've seen the thing before, but I hadn't really paid too much attention. Tried desperately hard to get rid of the Russian subtitles, but couldn't do it. Dan says this: very square front and bonnet on it, which visibility nightmare. I don't know about visibility nightmare, but it did look boxy, didn't it? Almost like a sort of a generation or two ago. No racing lines or anything like that. I doubt I'd spill a cup of tea in ore. It looks like a deer, though, weirdly enough. Jim Turner. I don't know if Marco is still watching, but it looks like everybody seems to want Marco Laurini to come to the UK. If I can sort out an Cat Club working weekend, it would be great to invite Marco over for the weekend, or even for a collection visits we have through the year. Listen, I'm more than happy to put you in touch with Mr. Laurini, although I would recommend, rather than bringing him here, go there. It's lovely. Gary Muirhead says, do Powerplus have a dealer here in the UK? I don't know. I will have a look in just a moment if I can get it done quickly enough, because our final film of the day is quite a quick one. It's kind of a lead into my morning monologue. So I'll be back after this. Had a very quick look, Gary. The only Powerplus I can see is in the manufacture of generators and stuff. So it doesn't look like they are in the UK. Something else they've got in common with the fine folks at John Deere. Gary Goldsborough's just joined us over on Instagram as well. Morning, Gary. Haven't seen you for a long, long while. Hope you're fitting well, my friend. Yes, so final film of the day, which, as I say, does lead into my morning monologue, is LiuGong, being all electric and stuff. Hold that thought, because I'm going to be talking about electric machines in just a moment, and hydrogen machines as well, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But that is about it for the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, then please do stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues, and I hope to see you again very, very soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I will be back. I will be back. I'll be back immediately after this. As the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution, the UK once reshaped the world through steam engines and coal. Today, we're trying to reshape it again, this time in the name of sustainability. We've shut down major coal power plants, set aggressive targets to stop petrol and diesel car sales, and now we're extending that ambition to large-scale demolition and construction equipment. But what happens when policy ambition leaps ahead of viable technology and infrastructure? That question should concern every operator, contractor, and fleet manager who struggles with equipment that simply isn't ready to switch. And frankly, it's a question that should have been addressed already, long before these ambitious environmental targets were even set. Consider the coal phase-out. In late 2024, the UK finally closed its last coal-fired power station, a watershed moment marking the end of 140 years of coal-based energy. And that transition was far from smooth. Despite the growth of renewable sources, the loss of our coal-fired power stations left us with an energy shortfall. On several occasions since, we've come desperately close to seeing the lights go out. Furthermore, we are still many years away from seeing our new nuclear power plants coming online to pick up the slack. What about the rollout of electric vehicles? The UK has one of the highest growth rates in EV uptake, and public charging stations surged past 75,000 earlier this year. Yet still, the long-anticipated rapid charger fund was dropped and replaced with a smaller on-street charging scheme. While numbers continue to climb, many regions face delays, limited ultra-fast chargers at motorway services, and paralysis in local planning permits. The result is range anxiety and patchy deployment. People question whether the ladder we're building can really hold the weight of the targets set to 2030 and beyond. And then there's hydrogen, a future hope pitched for heavy transport, lorries, buses, and plant and machinery. Yet today, the UK has fewer than a dozen public hydrogen stations, mostly for cars and buses, and certainly not for construction sites or quarries. The technology is not perfected, it's inefficient in production, and it has safety concerns that remain unresolved. To sit back and say hydrogen will simply replace diesel on an active excavator is fantasy. At least it is today. The pump infrastructure, refueling safety standards, and on-site handling protocols just aren't in place. Now reflect on demolition and construction equipment. Governments talk confidently about non-road mobile machinery bans and low emission zones for sites. Officials can recite the stats on EV car sales and train electrification, but they're largely unfamiliar with the demands of a 40-ton digger or the power draw of a dozer. They issue mandates as if battery electric excavators already exist commercially and at scale, as if hydrogen power wheel loaders are readily available, off the shelf, readily available for hire. The truth is entirely different. Diesel machines are reliable, they're powerful, and they are known quantities. Current electric alternatives are expensive, offer limited lifespan per charge, and need substantial cooling and recharge time. Hydrogen prototypes are barely leaving test beds and come with enormous capital expense and safety hurdles. This mismatch matters. When policy fails to align with reality, the consequences are clear. Expensive equipment idles, critical projects stall, assets are prematurely retired, and equipment owners pay for upgrades that offer little benefit. In fact, when you weigh the cost of manufacturing a brand new machine merely to satisfy an arbitrary environmental deadline, it's possible we might be doing more harm than good. With so many perfectly good diesel-powered machines already in the field, this should not be an either-or argument. We, and by we I mean the government, the industry, and society at large, should be focused not on stopping one fuel and starting another. We should be focused on a credible and achievable transition. We should be using low-carbon diesel blends and biofuels now, delivering modest but meaningful emissions reductions. We should be investing in hybrid and dual fuel systems that offer immediate operational utility while lowering CO2. We should be developing site-level microgrids that combine solar, battery storage, and low-carbon backup generators. They reduce both emissions and grid dependency. We should be piloting the real-world use of electric equipment, but doing so where the grid supply is actually on-site, and then study those sites rigorously to gather runtime, refueling, and life cycle data. Finally, and it's important to note that this is the last step, we must align policy with the infrastructure, engage local grid operators, hydrogen producers, and site planners to ensure charger or hydrogen hub development is actually viable within realistic timelines before bans or levies take effect. Sustainable progress demands more than symbolic targets. It requires a pragmatic, evidence-based ladder, each rung validated before we climb. Not every leap lands safely when the ground beneath isn't ready. And this Monologue article isn't a rejection of net zero. It's a call for smarter support of credible paths. If we pair ambition with reality, demolition and construction can lead a transition grounded in working machinery and not in broken promises and missed targets. There you are. That's my latest piece. That will be available to view over on LinkedIn in our Future Fuels newsletter fairly soon. Let me think. It's going to be available in about 15 minutes, actually. That's the truth of the matter. Dan, going back to the LiuGong, nice looking machine in green, but still not stuck on electric vehicles, and neither, sadly, is most other people. Now, I am going for a couple of days with the fine folks at Volvo on Tuesday and Wednesday next week, 1st and the 2nd of July, going off to Nuremberg, basically, in Germany. And we're going to an all-electric demolition site. Obviously, I'm looking forward to spending time with the fine folks at Volvo, because that's always fun. Looking forward to seeing the equipment, but I'm also looking forward to seeing exactly how it's been implemented. Because I'm currently seeing very, 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 very few sites here in the UK that you could switch to electric anytime soon. One or two machines, possibly, backed by generators and that kind of thing. Yeah, absolutely. But a complete switch, I'm certainly not seeing it. Jim Turner, stepping back into the dim and distant foggy world of history. When Steve Power took over on horse, oxen, wind and water power, it wasn't because of legislation. It was because it was better for those that adopted it. That's how progress works. Yeah. I think within that, there is a truth that a lot of people are overlooking. Obviously, I say obviously, I mean, there are some people that would still dispute this. I do think we would all like the world to be cleaner and greener for our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren. I'd like to think that we're all largely on board with the prevention of climate change, and we know all of that. But where it falls short, where it currently falls short, as Jim has rightly said there, is identifying what actual benefit individual people and companies will get. And all the time we are working with intangible benefits globally. If we switched on to electric equipment here in the UK tomorrow, we would reduce, 1 million tons of carbon going into the atmosphere, which is roughly what China is pumping into the atmosphere on a daily basis. So it's a really, really hard one to sell. We're doing our bit. Not everybody is. Therefore, is it worth doing? The only time it makes sense, going back to Jim's point here, the only time it makes sense is when individual people or individual companies actually see a genuine personal benefit. They see their fuel consumption or the fuel costs hugely reduced. They see the longevity of their machines hugely extended. They see health benefits for their operators and so on down the line. As it stands at the moment, we can't do that. And also, let's be absolutely honest, this is an industry, it is a very commercial, as all industries are, it's a very commercial industry. It's very hard to sell people on the notion of electric machines, for example. They will only run half as long as a diesel, and they cost twice as much. That's a hard sell, right? And there, as it stands at the moment, there is no evidence that the hydrogen will redress that balance. Until hydrogen is being genuinely mass produced, a la coal back in the day, a la oil and gas from the North Sea. Until that happens, it's going to be the expensive option. And what is going to be the price premium on a hydrogen-powered machine? We have some. Hyundai have got them. Liebherr have got them. JCB quite obviously have got one. I've got them. What is the cost of a hydrogen backhoe loader as opposed to a diesel backhoe loader? 1.5 times more? 1.6, 7, 8? 2 times the price? 2 times the price, and you can't get fuel for love nor money unless you happen to be in one of those half dozen places where you can actually get hydrogen readily. It's a set of maths that doesn't yet stack up. Now, bearing in mind, there are various targets on our timeline going forward from 2030, 2040, 2050. Well, 2030 is 5 years away. 5 years away. That's one more Bauma cycle, one more ConExpo cycle, and then 2030 will be here. I saw some fantastic, marvelous, giant leaps forward while I was at Bauma, but nothing that suggested to me that we could switch off diesel in the next 5, 10, 15 years. Nothing at all. Dan says, that's well written. Thank you very much. But as an economy, we're not ready to take on these different alternatives in construction as it's time-consuming and may slow projects down. Yeah. But think about that. Think about that. I would love to think that you as a demolition contractor, for example, that you could go to your client and say, we have just invested in 5 brand new purely electric powered high reach excavators. I'm making this up, but that's what we've done. As our commitment to the environment, that's what we've done. And the client says, well, that's fantastic news because that will contribute to our reduction or carbon reduction on this site. So that's a big tick in your box. What about timescales? Yeah, well, there is a bit of an issue there. We'd originally allowed 6 months for this, but because of the charging times, actually it's going to be more like 9. How many clients are going to say, that seems perfectly reasonable? We'll wait another 3 months while you do that before we start to earn money from the new building that you're contributing towards. Anyone going to swallow that? So, Dan, you're absolutely on the money. In fact, people actually gave a toss about CO2 and other pollution, including governments. They'd only trade with countries that think the same. And we all know this isn't true. Yeah. And unfortunately, I mean, given all that's going on in the world, not just environmentally, but, in other aspects as well, if you were to, I mean, I touched on this. I think I touched on this yesterday. If you were only going to do business with people that you thought were good and proper, from a sustainability, from a political, from from every aspect, you'd probably not do much business. Sometimes you just need to bite the bullet and get on with it. But I do wonder. It's going to be a harder and harder one to sell, I think. We shall see. We are a mere grain of sand compared to the pollution other nations are creating. So totally pointless thinking we're making a difference whilst we are helping biggest polluters grow larger and able to make even more pollution. And therein lies yet another rub. Yeah. I realise a lot of our talk about carbon reduction is at site. So, never mind how much carbon was emitted or wasted in making the machine or transporting the machine or creating the steel that went to the machine, all of those things. Regardless of all of that, at the point that you as a demolition contractor, a ground worker or a plant hirer, at the point that you put that machine to work, you are reducing emissions. But you can't take that in isolation. And that was one of the reasons, and I know this is something that Jim believes in very, very passionately, is this idea of, as it stands at the moment, if you've got a diesel machine, let's say that diesel machine is 2, 3, 5 years old, and you're sat there thinking, well, maybe electric is the way. Maybe it would give me a bit of a competitive advantage in some way. Maybe I could go to my clients and say, look, I've gone electric to reduce my carbon emissions and yours. This is a giant leap forward. But when you actually sit down and do the maths, it would be far better for the planet if you were to sit on that 5-year-old diesel-powered machine for another 5 years than it would making somebody go and build an electric machine. That's the fact of the matter. And until we can redress that balance, it doesn't pay in the way that we think it does. No, you do the same amount of business, but the trade will be between the people with the same ethics. Listen. I hate to be the miserable old sod in the corner. How much does ethics come into business, into politics, into modern life? I'm as I'm saying these words, I can hear my dad saying them to me, and I realise I'm coming across as that guy. But are we? I fear we are beyond the point where ethics make any bleeding difference whatsoever. I told you I've been watching this BBC iPlayer series called Shifty with Adam Curtis. Well, he's done another one. Well, he actually did this one before. It's called Hypernormalization. And I watched that last night. It's about 2.5 hours. It's a it really does take some commitment. But man alive. And some of it goes back to things like Ronald Reagan and basically targeting Colonel Gaddafi as this global criminal mastermind when he actually wasn't. If you're into that kind of thing, go and give it a look. Hypernormalization by Adam Curtis. It's available on BBC iPlayer. If you're in the UK, you can watch it free. And honestly, talk about wake up call. Honestly, it just blew my mind. The government overshot the runway. Instead of building the nuclear plants and when they're up and running, then demolish the power stations as a progress on the new plants. We've had this discussion before, and Dan, you're on the money. Think about this, and I realise this is, in the grand scheme of things, this is not the best thing to highlight, but power stations, including Didcot A, were closed, decommissioned, and demolished, basically to satisfy an EU directive. Now, we're not part of the EU anymore, so there's that. If Didcot hadn't been demolished, we'd have 4 more demolition workers in our midst because they wouldn't have died. But also, there was a Didcot A and a Didcot B. Didcot B, I can't remember, was it it may have been biofuel or something like that. But Didcot A was more efficient than Didcot B. But because of this EU directive, the large boiler directive, we agreed to knock down or decommission and knock down Didcot A, even though it was the more efficient of the two. And as Dan rightly said, we've got Hinkley and what have you. I've said this to my children. You don't jack in a job until you've got something else to go to. You don't close all your power stations until you've got some other way of getting your power. And nuclear, what is our first nuclear power station scheduled to come online? Is it 20 years, 25 years time? We've got a growing population for one reason or another. We're constantly demanding more and more and more power. And we decided to tip our hat to the EU and say, yep, that's it. We're going to close down all of our power stations. And, and I know Ken, I'm not sure Ken's here anymore, but Ken watches the national grid fairly religiously. And several times, in the last 2 or 3 years, several times around about winter time, we have come desperately close to the lights going out, desperately close, because we were too hasty. And I do think it sounds like a really naff, cliched term to say when we're talking about, the global environment and government policy. But I do believe that we have been too hasty. That's exactly what it is. It's too hasty. We are so keen to be seen, to be green, that we've jumped before we've had a really good look at what's going on. We've looked before we've leapt. In this generation, there are no ethics. I fear you're right. Just on that subject, and I mentioned Marco Laurini earlier, and obviously earlier in the week we featured Gilles Ronet at Caterpillar, and Stefano Panseri and his brother Roberto and people like that. Isn't it indicative that you kind of warm to people because they are unusually nice? Would the world not be better if we just avoided those rare individuals that weren't nice? And yet, people that are genuinely nice and helpful and kind and generous and welcoming and warm, they stand out like the balls on a bulldog, don't they? It shouldn't be like that. That's what happened here. The government listened to the EU and went green. In my arse, he says. Jim says, politicians generally don't have any ethics. I think you're right. But they spout on all the time about how we should be doing the right thing. So why trade with companies that openly fund terrorism? We buy from them if they are going to channel that money into trying to destroy our way of life. It's a double-edged sword, that one, though, Jim. And I know what you're saying, and I do agree with you, but when you think about the company, or the countries rather, the nation states to which we have traditionally and continue to sell arms and armaments, are we any better? And you would have thought in this day and age, we would have learned to not sell arms and armaments to countries that could and likely will at some point send them back our way. And yet we continue to do that, don't we? Young people have no ethics. That's a sweeping statement. To go get a job, they only want to be on TikTok, YouTube, and say, oh, I'm an influencer to others. In my defense, I'm not young, but that's kind of what I do for a living. Yeah. And I realise it's a strange direction to take this in, but I'm just going to pick up on this. We do now live, and regardless of young people and everything else, we do live in an age and in a world where, in order to secure fame and fortune, sometimes it pays to just be an absolutely terrible person. If you're a terrible person, you can have your own TV show, Piers Morgan. If you're a terrible person, you can be enormously famous, Kim Kardashian. If you're a terrible person, you might just get the gig as President of the United States of America. The more and more I talk like this, the more I think I'm going to get to the American border in March next year for ConExpo, and they're going to say, fuck off. Anyway, people, that will do us for today. I am going to say good morning to our friends Takashi2057 over on Instagram, because they've just joined us. This is why the country and construction game is shit. The young aren't shaped on back of here and get out and get yourself a job. Not directed at you. Yes, you influence the smart, but in a positive way. I try to. Listen, I mean, the whole term influencer sits very uncomfortably with me anyway. Do I influence anything? I don't think I do. But I do try desperately to be the good guy, and I realise sometimes I upset people along the way, but I'd like to think. I mean, I had this conversation with somebody on LinkedIn a little while ago. He was giving me a hard time about the fact that I only talk negatively about the industry. It's because it could be better. If the industry was all shiny and spangly and didn't have any accidents or corruption and was kinder to people and was better to women and ethnic minorities, and you weren't afraid to be gay or trans or whatever it might be, then I might take a bit of a step back and say, yeah, do you know what? Everything's hunky-dory. But until it's hunky-dory, you've got to stand up and be counted, haven't you? Jim Turner says, I don't trade with people I don't like or trust. So why would a country trade with countries that don't think like them? There's enough civilized countries to keep everything rolling along. Who do you count as civilized countries? I'm not being deliberately obtuse here. Who in the world would you consider to be a civilized country? I'm thinking Norway and Denmark and Finland. I'm thinking Canada. Belgium? Not many, is it? Dan says, have a fantastic day. Take care of yourself and speak tomorrow. Thank you very much. Indeed. You too. Good guy. You're a bloody smashing guy. Thank you, Dan. That's very nice of you. I shall have that on my headstone. And Jim Turner says, then all the wrong ones will eventually fall in line or stay in the dark ages. My concern is it's us that's in the dark ages. That's my bigger concern. Since I met you, I've got more interest in this industry, and Nigel as well. Piqued my interest. If I hadn't met you guys, yeah, thank you very much indeed, Dad. Okay, well, everybody, go forth. I've got to get the film finished. With any luck, I will have a film tomorrow that will take you round the factory that actually produced that. I'll be working on that just as soon as this show is over. I've got some other bits and pieces to bring you, including I've got an interview with the guy that is replacing Gilles Ronnet, Jean-Christophe, or JC as to his friends, Jean-Christophe Etienne. I've got an exclusive interview with him that I will have for you tomorrow as well. So lots of reasons to come back, lots of more to talk about. Till then, everybody, have a fine and splendid day. It's probably online now, actually. If you are on YouTube or Instagram or LinkedIn rather today, and you do see the film of the Laurini SETTANTA machine, give it a like, would you? I'd like to get that spread far and wide, because I do think the fine folks at Laurini deserve for that SETTANTA to be hugely successful. So go give it a boost, not for me, not for Fred, but for Marco Laurini and his gang. If you do that, be most grateful. Till tomorrow, everybody, have a fine and splendid day. See you soon.